Now, get ready. We are embarking on a journey a full century long. A journey through trenches, secret laboratories, battlefields, and exhibition halls. We will not just be talking about pieces of metal. We'll be talking about keys that unlock doors to new eras. We will discuss 5 legends, 5 submachine guns that didn't just kill, but changed the course of history. Let's begin. Evolution. Not the monkey kind, but the truly terrifying one. Have you ever wondered what an ancient dinosaur and, say, a modern submachine gun have in common? At first glance, nothing. But if you dig deeper, they're united by one single, ruthless, and relentless process. Evolution, the very same natural selection that, over millions of years, turned a trilobite into an eagle and an amoeba into a human. Only in war, this process takes not millions of years, but mere months, weeks, sometimes even days. War is a giant, monstrous testing ground, a giant crucible where steel, lead, and human lives are melted and mixed. And from this infernal alloy, new, utterly unique species of weapons are born. Weapons perfectly adapted for survival in specific, most horrific conditions. The submachine gun was precisely such a species, born in the utter hell of one particular conflict. Its cradle was the First World War, not the parade ground version with marching regiments and shiny shakos, sometimes shown in old films. No, the real First World War is mud, lice, the stench of death, and endless, hopeless miles of trenches. Imagine this picture. 2 giant armies are locked in a stalemate across a strip of land pockmarked with craters and littered with barbed wire. Artillery pounds both sides. Machine guns mow down any movement in no man's land. An infantry assault becomes suicide. The war has reached a strategic dead end. Stagnation. A meat grinder that chews up thousands of lives a day without any meaning or result. And it is in this hell that a new tactic is born. The tactic of stormtrooper groups. This is not a crowd of soldiers running upright into machine guns. These are small, highly trained units whose task is to break into an enemy trench and clear it in close combat. And here, classic long rifles with their powerful cartridges become useless. In the tight confines of communication trenches, there's no room to maneuver them, and their bullet, capable of piercing through at a kilometer upon hitting one enemy, would fly off into the distance, ricocheting off the trench walls and posing a danger to one's own troops. Something new was needed. Compact, portable, capable of delivering automatic fire in short, controlled bursts at ranges up to 100 meters. And this something had to fire not powerful rifle cartridges, but pistol cartridges. Less powerful, but with less recoil, allowing the weapon to be controlled in full auto fire. The first Harbinger, strangely enough, wasn't even an infantry model. The Italians created the Pistola Mitragliatrice Fiat mod, 1915, or, as it's more commonly known, the Villaparosa. It was a strange creation. 2 barrels, 2 magazines, firing the 9mm Glicini pistol cartridge at a crazy rate. But initially, it was mounted on airplanes and balloons as a light defensive machine gun. Later, it was adapted for infantry, but the design was awkward. If you've seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, it's this very weapon that Papa Jones uses to shoot off the tail of his own plane. An amusing fact, but nothing more. The true grandfather of all submachine guns, the first to realize the very concept, was the German MP18. Appearing in 1918, it was expensive, milled from a solid steel blank, and heavy. But it was the first. It gave a stormtrooper that very controlled automatic firepower. It was fed from a 32-round drum magazine, the snail, which attached to the side. This magazine was designed for the famous P08 Parabellum pistol. The MP-18 didn't have time to radically change the course of the war, but it planted a seed that would germinate in the next 2 decades. It is precisely these offshoots, the brightest, most influential blooms on this tree of evolution, that we will discuss. I will rely on the brilliant article by American specialist Will Dabbs, but I will filter every one of his theses through the prism of my own understanding of history, economics, and simple human logic. Ready? Then let's begin our parade of legends. Legend 1, MP40, when war became an assembly line. Historical and economic context. The Versailles Diktat and German genius. To understand the phenomenon of the MP40, we need to rewind to 1919. The First World War is over. Germany is defeated. The victorious nations, particularly France and Great Britain, decided to punish the Germans so they would never rise again. The Treaty of Versailles was signed, a document that essentially became a time bomb under the foundation of the whole of Europe. According to this treaty, Germany was forbidden from possessing many types of weaponry: tanks, heavy artillery, aviation, and, of course, automatic infantry weapons, including submachine guns. German military thought was driven underground. Designers went to other countries, like Hugo Schmeisser to Switzerland, and later his developments would go to the USSR and form the basis of the future AK. Worked on civilian models or secretly created prototypes, bypassing all restrictions. But everything changed with the Nazis coming to power. From the very beginning, they openly demonstrated contempt for the Versailles restrictions. Large-scale rearmament began, and here a huge economic task arose: how to equip a 1 million-strong army, which was growing like yeast, with effective, modern, yet cheap and technologically advanced weapons. The answer was the transition from milling to stamping. Weapon analysis, the birth of the industrial soldier. The MP40 is not just a weapon. It's a philosophy. The philosophy of total war, the war of engines and assembly lines. Its direct predecessor, the MP38, was already an excellent SMG, but it still had traces of individuality. Aluminum parts, a milled receiver, those very longitudinal grooves on it. It was expensive to produce. The MP40 was the answer. It was a weapon created not for parades, but for the trenches. Its receiver wasn't milled from a solid piece of metal, but was stamped from sheet steel. It's like the difference between hand-forging a sword and stamping a shovel in a factory. The sword is beautiful, individual, but takes days to create. Shovels can be stamped out by the thousands per hour. This reduced the cost and, critically, the production time many times over. The second revolutionary step was the complete rejection of wood. Wooden stocks and firennes were an anachronism. The MP40 was made of steel and a new synthetic material for that time, bakelite. This was the plastic of the early 20th century. Durable, cheap, impervious to moisture. The weapon became a technological product of the industrial era. It fired the same 9 by 19 millimeters parabellum cartridges from an open bolt and only in full auto mode. Its 32-round magazine was not the most reliable, required careful loading, and was the Achilles heel of the system. But importantly, this magazine, its feed lips, became the de facto standard for decades to come. My opinion and commentary on the commentary. Well, Dabbs is absolutely right to include the MP40 on the list. It was the Ford Model T of the firearms world. It wasn't the best in terms of performance characteristics. It had its flaws. But it was the first mass-produced military SMG that embodied the principle. Mass-produced, cheap, functional. It brought weapons out of the era of craftsmen and into the era of industrialization. And I fully support the thought expressed in historical weaponry. The influence of the MP40 is colossal. Look at the Soviet PPS, the Sudayev submachine gun, a legendary weapon of besieged Leningrad. It was also stamped, even more technological and simple. And what was the model for it? The German MP 38/40 trophies from 1941. And as for the post-war SMGs of all the world's countries, which shamelessly copied the MP40's magazine, well, it goes without saying. It was the gold standard. The MP40 is not just the German Schmeisser, as it's often mistakenly called. It is a symbol of a new era, an era where the soldier from the assembly line met the weapon from the assembly line. And together, they created the most terrible history of the 20th century. Legend 2. Uzi, the weapon of resurrection. Historical and economic context. Survival at the cost of ingenuity. Let's move from the smoking ruins of Europe to the Middle East. 1948. The State of Israel has just been proclaimed. Literally the day after the Declaration of Independence, the armies of 5 neighboring Arab states attack it. A young country is fighting for survival. It has no heavy industry, no established weapons supply chains. It is under an international embargo. Powerful nations did not want to quarrel with the Arab world and its oil. Imagine this position. The enemy is at the gates, its armies armed to the teeth with British and French weaponry. And you don't have enough guns for everyone, count bullets, have almost no air force. An existential threat. In such conditions, not just a weapon is born. A symbol of national resilience and engineering genius is born. This genius was Major Uziel Gal, a modest, quiet officer who took it upon himself to give his army what it couldn't survive without: a modern, reliable, cheap-to-produce, and easy-to-master submachine gun. Weapon analysis. Genius in simplicity. The Uzi is not so much a breakthrough in technology as it is a genius of layout and refinement of others' ideas. Yes, well, Dabs is right to mention the Czech negative 476 Zambian kwacha. The concept of a telescoping bolt with a bolt slides over the barrel was not new. This allowed for a shorter weapon without sacrificing barrel length. But Gal took this idea and built a perfect system around it. The magazine is inserted into the pistol grip. It seems so obvious now, but back then it was revolutionary. It makes reloading intuitive even in the dark and under stress. The center of gravity shifts onto the hand, improving balance and controllability in burst fire. And the Uzi was incredibly safe. It had a well-thought-out safety system, including that very ratchet system in the cocking handle that prevented the bolt from accidentally moving forward if the weapon was dropped or struck. For a young conscript who had just come from the fields the day before, this was a lifesaver. It was stamped like the MP40, but brought this idea to perfection. Its production could be set up in any garage, which almost happened. It was produced in different calibers, but the main one became, of course, the ubiquitous 9mm Parabellum, and it went into mass production on a scale that is hard to comprehend. More than 10 million copies. It is the most produced SMG in history, a figure that speaks for itself. My opinion and commentary on the commentary. Here I enter into a debate with both will and historical weaponry. Yes, the PPSH, the Spajan submachine gun, was produced in huge quantities, about 6 million units. But the Uzi surpassed it. And it's not just about the numbers. The claim that the Uzi is a copy of the Czech SMG is not entirely fair. In the firearms world, things rarely appear out of nowhere. Everyone borrows from everyone else. The question is what you do with these borrowings. Gal didn't copy. He synthesized. He created such a holistic, thoughtful, and adaptive design that it overshadowed its ancestor. It's like saying all smartphones are copies of the first iPhone. Technically, yes, but in essence, no. The Uzi is more than a weapon. It is a cultural phenomenon. It became a symbol of the Israeli miracle, a symbol of special forces around the world, a star of Hollywood action movies of the 80s. It proved that genius is not always about inventing the wheel. Sometimes it's about being able to assemble a bicycle from known parts that can ride through the desert and win. It is a weapon born from a will to live, and that is its main strength. Legend 3. HKMP5, the gold standard of the elite. Historical and economic context. The Cold War and the birth of the professional. While the Uzi was conquering the world in hot spots, in post-war divided Germany, its own revolution was brewing. The country that gave birth to the MP40 was now, recovered from the war, creating a weapon of a new generation. A weapon not for a mass conscript army, but for professionals, special units, anti-terrorist groups, elite police formations. The Cold War was underway. The threat of nuclear apocalypse had pushed trench warfare into the background. The forefront was now occupied by a secret war, a war of intelligence agencies, sabotage, and counter-terrorist operations. A war where one shot had to be accurate, and an operation was broadcast to the whole world on television. The era demanded not mass, but the highest quality and precision. The German company Heckler Koch, which inherited the brains and developments of the defunct Mauser Empire, took its own G3 rifle as a basis. And that one, in turn, traced its lineage back to the German STG-45 prototype via the Spanish SETME. The result was the MP5, a weapon that for decades would become synonymous with the word Special Forces. Weapon analysis, where precision trumps rate of fire. The main difference between the MP5 and all previous SMGs on our list is its locking system. It's not a simple blowback like the Uzi or MP40. It's a roller-delayed blowback system, a complex, expensive, but incredibly effective system. It was borrowed from full-fledged battle rifles. What does this mean in practice? The MP5 fires from a closed bolt. This means that at the moment of firing, all moving parts are already stationary. The bolt is closed. This drastically improves the accuracy of the first shot, especially in semi-automatic mode. The weapon doesn't jolt at the moment of trigger pull. It behaves like a semi-automatic pistol. In its time, no other SMG could match its accuracy. The second key factor is modularity. Long before it became mainstream, the MP5 offered variants. The shortened MP, 5K for concealed carry, the integrally suppressed MP, 5SD, various stocks, and forens. It was a constructor set for a professional. But the MP5's real worldwide fame came not from a technical brochure, but from television. 1980, the SAS operation to rescue hostages at the Iranian embassy in London on Prince's Gate. Black jumpsuits, gas masks, and in their hands, compact MP5s. Clear, lightning-fast actions. The assault was broadcast live. After that, every police officer and soldier in the world dreamed of black camouflage and a black MP5. It was a marketing triumph based on real combat qualities. My opinion and commentary on the commentary. Well, Dabs modestly writes, I approve of the choice. The MP5 is impressive even without advertising. This is the height of British understatement. The MP5 is the absolute benchmark. Yes, its rate of fire of 800 rounds per minute is high. Controlling long bursts is difficult. But this weapon is not for long bursts. It is a weapon for precise, cold-blooded shots into the head of a terrorist using a hostage as a shield. The MP5 is the Mercedes among SMGs. It's expensive, it's demanding to maintain, it doesn't forgive rough handling. But if you're a professional, if you've undergone training, if you need a 100% guarantee that your first shot will hit the target, there is no other choice. It reigned supreme until it began to be pushed out by short rifles like the M4, but even today it remains in the arsenals of the best of the best. It is a legendary weapon, an icon. Legend 4. Mach 10, the American Dream, or Nightmare. Historical and economic context. The madness of Vietnam and the era of The Godfather. The 60s and 70s in the USA were an era of counterculture, the Vietnam War, and the flowering of Hollywood gangster cinema. While soldiers in the jungles of Vietnam struggled with not-so-reliable M16s, something else was happening back in the States. Demand was growing for compact, powerful weapons for special services and, incidentally, for the criminal world. The Military Armaments Corporation, MAC, of Gordon Ingram created something unique. The MAC-10. Its official name was the M10, but popular rumor immediately christened it the MAC-10. And the name stuck fast. The economic premise was simple: to create the cheapest, most technological, and most compact hose possible. And it had to work with a suppressor from the very start. This was a weapon for specific tasks: reconnaissance saboteurs, bodyguards, and, alas, hitmen. Weapon analysis. Rate of fire over accuracy. The MAC-10 is the complete opposite of the MP5. If the MP5 is a surgical scalpel, the MAC-10 is a sledgehammer wrapped in barbed wire. Its main, and perhaps only, outstanding characteristic is its incredible rate of fire. About 1,200 rounds per minute for the 9mm version, and up to 1,600 for the 45 ACP version. Imagine, you pull the trigger, and more than 20 bullets leave the barrel in 1 second. A 32-round magazine is emptied in less than 2 seconds. It was made almost entirely from stamped parts, welded together. Technologically, it was a masterpiece of economy. Cheap and angry, but there was a price to pay. Controlling such a firestorm was almost impossible. The weapon climbed fiercely, and accuracy was extremely low. Its tactic was to hose down an area with lead in the hope that at least one bullet would hit the target. At the same time, despite its compactness, it was surprisingly heavy for its size. It weighed almost as much as an M16 rifle. But its main trump card was its compactness. A folded stock, a short barrel. It easily hid under clothing. My opinion and commentary on the commentary. Well, Dabbs honestly admits, if I didn't put the MAC-10 on my list, I wouldn't be an American. And he's right. The MAC-10 is a deeply American phenomenon. It is a weapon paradox. On the one hand, a dead-end branch of evolution, as correctly noted in historical weaponry. No self-respecting army in the world adopted it en masse. But on the other hand, the MAC-10 is a cultural artifact. It is the weapon of action movie heroes, gangsters, and undercover agents. It became a symbol of an era. And after the 1986 ban on civilian registration of new automatic weapons in the USA, legal MAC-10 samples became rarities, the coveted dream of collectors, a starting point into the world of expensive and rare machine guns. It wasn't good in the classical sense, but it was bright, brazen, and fit perfectly into its specific context. The MAC-10 is the unruly, unbridled rock and roll in the world of strict firearms classical music. Legend 5. H.K. Ump, the universal soldier of the future. Historical and economic context. The end of history and new threats. The 90s. The Cold War is over. It seemed like the end of history had arrived. The world became unipolar, globalized. But the threat of global war was replaced by new challenges: asymmetric conflicts, international terrorism, peacekeeping operations. In these conditions, a weapon was needed that would combine the reliability and accuracy of the MP5 with greater versatility, cheapness, and adaptability. Short rifles like the M4 were already actively pushing SMGs out of special forces arsenals. The Germans from Heckler Koch needed to provide an answer. Their answer was the UMP, Universal Maskin Pistol, Universal Submachine Gun. Introduced in the year 2000, it was meant to be the new word in its class. Weapon analysis. The plastic world has won. The main thing about the UMP is its materials. If the MP5 was a Mercedes with a steel body, The UMP is a modern hatchback with carbon fiber parts. Its receiver and many other parts are made of high-strength polymer. This made it incredibly light, just 2.5 kilograms. Against its steel ancestors, it seemed like a toy, but a durable and reliable one. The second trump card is true universality. By replacing a few key parts, barrel, bolt, magazine, one could transform the UMP from a weapon chambered in 9mm to one chambered in the more powerful 40 SWR, 45 ACP. This was a logistician's dream. One basic construct, 3 different calibers for different tasks. But the most interesting and non-obvious decision is the low rate of fire, just 600 rounds per minute. After the frenzied Mach 10 and the speedy MP5, this seems strange, but there was a calculation behind it. A low rate of fire means supreme controllability. A burst of 2 or 3 shots lands in the same spot. This is a weapon for precise, economical work, not for creating a high volume of fire. My opinion and commentary on the commentary. The UMP did not repeat the resounding success of the MP5. It did not become the new gold standard, partly because its niche was already occupied by carbines. But Will Dabbs is absolutely right when he says that the UMP is a quantum leap in material science. It was a herald of the future. It laid the foundation for the even more futuristic MP7, for a whole generation of polymer weapons. The UMP is a bridge between classic SMGs and the weapons of the future. It is not as famous as its older brother, but its influence on engineering thought is colossal, and its appearance in the finale of Casino Royale is a perfect demonstration of its essence. A modern, technological, no-frills weapon for a new hero in a new century. Conclusion: what's next? Evolution continues. So, we have traveled from the trenches of the First World War to the counter-terrorist operations of the 21st century. 5 legends, 5 completely different philosophies. MP40, the philosophy of mass production and the industrialization of war. Uzi, the philosophy of survival and genius simplicity. MP5, the philosophy of uncompromising precision and professionalism. Mach 10, the philosophy of unbridled power and rate of fire. HKUMP, the philosophy of universality and the materials of the future. Each of them was an answer to the challenges of its time, and each of them, one way or another, influenced what would be created after. And what about today? The era of the submachine gun in its classical understanding seems to be ending. Its niche is being confidently occupied by personal defense weapons, PDW, chambering specialized armor-piercing rounds, like the HK MP7 or the Belgian FNP90. But does this mean the SMG is dead? Not at all. They are evolving. They are becoming even more compact, even more adaptive, even more integrated into the systems of the future soldier. The tree of evolution continues to branch. And who knows, maybe in 20 years we will remember some modern SMG, just as we remember the MP40 today, as the beginning of a new era. This story has no end, because as long as there are threats, as long as there are conflicts, new weapons will be born. Weapons that will be an integral part of our, alas, not always peaceful human history. Call to action, too. Now it's your turn. Well, friends, we've traveled this long, but hopefully engaging path together. If you've read this far, it means this topic has ignited a spark in you too. Now, the most important part. Any story, even the most detailed one, is a monologue. But I want a dialogue. This tells me, man, you're great. Write more. For an author, this is the best motivation. Write a comment. I've been waiting. Do you agree with my list? What about Will Dabbs' list? Which submachine gun, in your opinion, is the most legendary? Maybe I was unfair to the Mach 10? Or do you think the Uzi outshone everyone? Or do you believe the AKS-74 you also deserve a spot on this list? Let's argue, let's discuss. Your opinion is not just letters on a screen. It's a continuation of our shared history, our common interest, right? I look forward to every comment with great anticipation.